Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cameron Owens. I'm here with Mr. Leo Westbrook, who is a former Negro League baseball player, a pitcher. He played for a couple different teams, including the Memphis Tigers, the Indianapolis Clowns. But we'll just have him kind of share a little bit about just his journey, his life at the Negro Leagues, and just his perspective on it. So, Mr. Westbrook, if you don't mind, the floor is yours. If there's anything that's on your heart that you want to share, you're more than welcome to. I got a couple questions here too, if
Sure.
you don't mind. So let's just get started with how long did you play in the Negro
I
Leagues?
was in the Negro League for 6 years, and I played with six. Oh, okay. I was in the Negro League for 6 years and played with six different teams. And the last team I played with was the Indianapolis Clowns. And they sold my contract to the New York Mets,
Mm.
and they sent me to the Western Carolina League from there.
And how was your time with the Mets after the integration?
It wasn't too bad. It could have been a lot better. Yeah, especially in Lexington, North Carolina. It was kind of tough going there, but I had a job to do, and I did it, and hopefully I did it well. I had to do it well, otherwise they wouldn't have kept me. Yeah, and I don't know if anybody in this room remember a St. Louis Cardinal player. His name was Enos Country Slaughter.
Okay.
That's who signed me. He was one of the head scouts for the New York Mets,
Mm.
and I had pitched a game in in Memphis, Tennessee. That was the first team I played with, was
Okay.
Memphis Red Sox, and he wasn't paying too much attention to me the first game, but I did quite well. And he told the manager, he said, "Well, I want to come back there and I want to see this Westbrook guy again." So that's how I ended up getting signed with the
The Mets.
Mets, New York Mets. And the Mets had one of my uh, favorite, well, he was my favorite player in baseball because we played semi pro before either one of us signed uh, professional contract. Lou Brock.
Mm.
You remember
Yeah, and I'm familiar with Lou Brock.
Lou Brock? And it was said that the Cubs traded Lou Brock to the St. Louis Cardinals, and that was one of the down in history is one of the worst trades in the history of baseball.
Yeah.
Because Lou Brock went there and helped the Cardinals win 2 World Series. He broke Ty Cobb's stolen base record,
Mm-hmm.
and he was quite a player. And he was a first round, ended up being a first round Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one story I tell because my wife owned 2 restaurants on the west side, and the team, that semi-pro team Lou Brock played with, was from the west side. I was on the south side of Chicago, so we played him. I struck him out 3 times, uh, and he came to bat 3 times. I struck him out 3 times, and it got back in the restaurant, and everybody laughing. Well, Lou Brock ain't all of that. Mr. Westbrook struck him out 3 times. He went to bat 3 times and got struck out 3 times. But they had what they call the last laugh. And I went in there one day and they was cutting up. And I said, "What is all this about?" They said, "Well, the Cubs just signed Lou Brock, and your husband is still playing semi-pro." So he got the last laugh, and but the Cubs, that was a big mistake they made by letting Lou Brock go. Unfortunately, Lou Brock passed about 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm.
He had cancer, and they thought they had got it all, but they didn't.
Mm.
And I always said I thought Lou Brock would live longer than me, but he didn't. But we was very good friends. As a matter of fact, because they used to have trials. A lot of teams had trials here in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and we tried out with the same team, White Sox, Cubs, and everybody turned us down. But then I think it was Philadelphia that signed him that first time, and then the Mets got him later. And the sad part about it, uh, they when they traded Lou Brock, they got a pitcher called Ernie Broglio,
Okay.
and you can look him up. But he didn't win but 2 games for the Cubs. And during this 2 games span, that's when Lou Brock broke the Ty stolen base record, and helped St. Louis win 2 World Series. And he was, like I say, he was a first round Hall of Famer.
Yeah, see, that goes to the Cubs struggle. I mean, now they broke their curse, so that's fine. But if you would have kept Lou Brock, maybe the series, you would have won a couple World Series before then. You know, who knows?
Absolutely.
But you had mentioned that you had battled with Lou Brock in the semi-pros. So like, can you kind of tell me more so about growing up before you got into the league? Like, what kind of pushed you into getting into the league?
back in the South.
Okay.
Because I was a Southern boy from Mississippi, and they had what they call sandlot baseball teams in the South. So my brother and I, we had kind of made us a baseball and cut a limb out of a tree, and that was our bat, and we used to just play strikeout. And I tell this story quite often. My brother, see, this was the batting box, and he was a right-hand hitter, and I threw a sweeping curveball, and it was actually a ball because it was behind it. So instead of him going out this way, he jumped right in the middle of the plate and he hit him in the back. So the next pitch I threw was a fastball right down the middle, and he jumped. Well, no, it was to the right, and he jumped to the backside and hit him in the back again. Then he told me it was his time to pitch. And I guess I said, our mother may have raised a fool, but I'm not one of them. Because right away I knew what he wanted to throw at me.
Yeah, he wanted some retaliation.
Yeah, he was going to retaliate. And now I said, I'm done for the day. So that was the end of that. But later on, after my freshman year in high school, I told my mother that I didn't want to live in the South anymore. And she said, why? I said, well, they got these baseball teams. She said, well, you playing? And I said, yeah, but you don't want us to play on Sundays because she told the managers, say, yeah, they can play, but they can't play on Sundays. And I said, that's when they had the best games on Sunday. So finally she gave in to them. And, but I told her that I wanted to leave my oldest brother, the one that played with Satchel Paige. He was living in Chicago at the time. So she said, okay, you can go stay with your brother. And I came to Chicago and stayed with him and went to Dunbar High School in Chicago, and stayed a while with my daddy up north, and he wasn't too hot on baseball. He wanted me to work. I told him, I said, I'm trying to become a professional baseball player. Boy, I got all you kids to take care. I ain't got time to play no baseball. And I tell this story all the time. He said, you know your name from the next man's name. So you don't need no more education. So I left him and I moved with a family that lived at 53rd in Michigan, right in that area. And Mr. and Mrs. Powell, they was real nice. And so, but they didn't hardly want me to have no girlfriend, especially bring them in the house. But then I went into the Army.
Okay.
And I came home on leave, and Miss Powell told her husband, said, well, you know, Leo, that's his room over there, and he do whatever he want to do. He don't take his girlfriend to no motel or nowhere. I said, oh, okay. I said, you don't got to be kidding. He said, no, you're a grown man. You're in the Army now. I said, yeah, I am in the Army now. So.
Now, you mentioned the Army, and I wanted to ask you a brief question. What happened at Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri?
Okay, that's a good story. When I went to Fort Leonard Wood for basic training, and, you know, they had a bunch of, well, it was a room much larger than this, but an auditorium, and they had all these ball players in there Well, no, there wasn't a whole lot of ball players. There was a few ball players. So this lieutenant got up and asked, any of you guys ever play professional baseball? I hadn't played professional baseball at that time, but I felt that I could compete with military baseball.
Right.
I held up my hand. He said, okay, we're practicing tomorrow. You can show up. And I made the team. I was the number 2 pitcher with Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And it was a pitcher where if you try to pull him up, you may get his name is Tom Borland. He pitched for the Memphis, not the Boston Red Sox.
Now, for those who don't know, at your base, was it all black or was it all white?
It was mixed.
Mixed. Okay.
And it really, I was probably maybe 2 or 3 blacks there. And I did have some racial problems, but since I was a good pitcher, the manager he said, hey, you don't mess with him. He said, not only that, his oldest brother is a professional fighter, and he taught him how to box. So this one guy, apparently he wasn't listening, or he wasn't. So one day he came out and he was telling the team more or less about his parents had this nigger maid to do their cooking. And I said, what did you say? He repeated it.
Double
and
down.
He stepped forward. And that my brother had taught me, and I crossed with a left hook right on the chin. He felt like a sack of cotton. But anyway, and the manager stopped it. He said, hey, this guy is only Leo and Tom Borland, the pitchers. Otherwise, we ain't got no pitchers. He said, I can't get him hurt. So that was the end of that. But I didn't have no more trouble out of none of them. Because they said, well, it's against the law for him to fight us, because he looked like he's a trained fighter, you know.
Yeah,
and it is against the law for a trained boxer to fight, a person that haven't boxed or did anything. So they said, well, I suggest that you don't mess with him, So that's how that ended up. And but I traveled, all around different Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, Fort Camp McCoy, Wisconsin. And
so coming out of the military, what moment did you feel that you were ready for the league?
Well, when I came back home, there was still some semi-pro teams around Chicago, because at one time, baseball among semi-pro teams in Chicago was big, and they had tournaments. Whoever won the division, they'd go, play in the tournament. So just about every year, we ended up, I forget the little town where they would have the playoffs. But so I played there until, I think I went back into the Negro League. So, and that was a lot of fun. And the thing I remember the most about the Negro League, other than some of the racism from time to time, was when I got out of the regular Army, I was going to reserve. I had some reserve time to do, because I didn't do all those 7 years. So they said, you gotta get some reserve time to do. So it was a colonel. He was well known at DuSable High School. And he told me, he said, Westbrook, he said, I want you to remember this. He said, you never walk to the outside of an office. He was a colonel. And I said, oh, yeah? I said, I never heard that. But he said, no, it's just like if you're walking a lady down the street. You keep her on the inside and you walk the outside, but not with a colonel. I said, okay, I remember that. Then he told me, he said, you still got some more time to do, so you think you'd like to go back to active duty? I said, I don't know. And so he said, well, I'm going to send this sergeant out to interview you. And he said, I think you'll make a fine officer. I said, oh, yeah. I said, but I wasn't planning on going back to active duty. So he said, well, I'm going to send this sergeant out. And he came out. And the day he came out there, I had signed a contract with the Memphis Red Sox the day before. And I told him, I said, hey, I just signed a baseball contract. He said, oh, Colonel Threep would love that. So you don't have to worry about going back. He won't bother you anymore because he loves baseball. And sad thing happened with Colonel Threep. He was bucking for brigadier general, and he didn't get it. He was a black colonel, and it messed his head up. And I ran into Captain Hayes on the west side with my wife on a restaurant, and I said, "What happened to Threet?" He said, "Westbrook is sad." He said he got passed over, and he said, Threet was a perfect soldier, so he got passed over, and he couldn't take it. And he ended up out at Mantino Hospital, and he finally passed away. I said, I'm sorry to hear that, because he really was trying to push me back in the service. He said, well, you didn't want to go back, because what they're doing, they're fast tracking black lieutenants to Vietnam. I said, well, no, you're right. I don't want to go to Vietnam. So he said, well, that's what happened to your buddy Threet. So I'm doing a lot of talking.
No, you're all good. You're all good. Okay, so you mentioned just the outside and just the discrimination and racism. Being in the Negro League, how was the games and how was the travel for the teams within the within each other?
Well, the travel was not good, because we traveled just about everywhere by bus. And we didn't fly nowhere, because none of the teams owned airplanes. Everywhere we was playing, but it was never more than 200 or 300 miles we had to go.
Okay.
And so we kind of got away with taking the bus.
And then when you would play each other, I mean, obviously you're playing, black team against a black team. How was that interaction, through the game, during the game, after the game, before the game? How were you guys kind of interacting with each other, as opposed to, the outside racism?
Yeah, it was very competitive, and we got along, got to know each other. And I don't know if you ever heard of, you're probably too young to remember a guy by the name of Double Duty Ratcliffe.
Yeah, he may have, maybe the brief kind of folds in my mind, but you have a story about him?
Not really. I played against him a couple of times, but I never played on the same team with Double Duty Ratcliffe. But I thought it was kind of outstanding what he could do. How he ended up with that name, Double Duty Ratcliffe. So, but we got along quite well, and the league itself, playing different teams, it was okay. As a matter of fact, it wasn't as bad as it was when the Mets bought my contract, and I went to their farm system and in Lexington, North Carolina. So this manager asked me, he said, Leo, these hitters ain't scoring no runs. They ain't hitting. He said, I need you to throw strikes. I need you to throw around a batting practice. I said, okay, no problem. He said, by the way, since you're going to throw around a batting practice, you're on the shift. You don't have to pitch for the next two or three outings. I said, okay. And so I threw 2 rounds instead of 1 round. I threw 2 rounds of batting practice. And I was still out there throwing, and I looked up, he was begging me to come in. I said, wonder what do you want? I went up there, he said, we need to win this game. And he said, I need you to go in. You think you can go in? And I was young. I didn't think there was nothing that I couldn't do. I said, yeah, I'll go in and finish the game up. So I went in, and the stands, Lexington was our home base. And when I went in, they yelled out, put all them niggas in.
Mm.
And there were but three of us on the team, the catcher, the second baseman, and the shortstop. And when they put me, that was the blacks. But that's what home,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't treated like that nowhere, except at home. And then I blew out my rotator cuff.
Mm.
And during those years, they were doing surgery for
Right.
rotator cuffs. And so when I came home, I, started back playing semi-pro, but I didn't have, and the pitches that I threw, you really needed your whole arm and your rotator cuff. You couldn't afford to lose. So, because I threw this Sandy Koufax diving curveball, and then this screwball turning that way. But anyway, after I left baseball, I came to Cook County Hospital, 27 years. I worked there as administrator. But let me tell you this story, and I'll be kind of quick with it. I went to a baseball school in Springfield, Illinois, and it was one of the old Washington Center's head scout, Jack Rossiter. And the stand was full of just ball players because everybody there was trying to make a team.
Mm-hmm.
So Jack said, y'all put them trophies and the gloves and balls back in your satchel, and said, because we got to talk. And they said, what do you want to talk about? So he got up and shook all of us up. He said, if three of you all make pro ball, I would feel that I have been a success. And we said, three out of all of us in the stands? And he said, yeah. And then he went on to say, he said, but I got something to share with you. He said, yeah, I know some of you guys probably didn't even finish high school because I look at you and tell you ain't old enough. And so he said, what I suggest to you is that you do, if you don't make it, you go back home and finish school if you haven't finished. And if you ain't married, get married and get you the best job you can find. And he said, best job? What kind of job? He called a garbage truck, this, that, and this garbage truck. We here to be a professional baseball player. And he said, well, let me tell you something. He said, garbage men make a pretty good salary. Mm. So if you got a job driving a truck, you're going to be making enough money to take care of your family. And he said, I don't know anything else better to tell you. And it turned out pretty good because quite a few guys most of the guys that played in Negro was out of the South. I was included one of them. It's just that I came to Chicago first. And so I said, well, it turned out that I'm not driving a garbage truck, but having this job at Cook County Hospital ain't no piece of cake. It was tough. So that's how that ended up at Cook County. And it was tough going, but this is a nasty job, but somebody got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up, I have a couple questions for you. I'll ask one more of a personal, kind of deeper question.
Sure.
And then afterwards, so when you had joined in the league, it was in the early 60s, maybe late 50s or so. It was
late 60s.
Early 60s.
Yeah.
It was after Jackie Robinson had already broke the color barrier.
Right.
And at that point, the Negro Leagues was kind of entering into a downfall, if you could say so, just because of the integration into the MLB. So although we are pro, integration and moving forward as a society, how do you feel that integration affected, I guess in a bad way, the league as a whole?
Well, as a whole, I think it had more positives than negatives, to be frank with you, because what happened, you had a lot of ball players, and it just so happened I was one of them, that had the ability to play pro baseball in American League and National League, but they just wasn't taking us that fast. And because they had a couple of movies out about showing how they treated some of the black players that signed baseball contracts. And Jackie Robinson was one of the first ones that they definitely didn't want him, but he paved the way, you know, after he got in. Even though our present president took his picture off his wall. I don't know if you know that. Yeah. Trump took his picture off the wall. I don't know if he put it back up, but he took it off. So,
well, while we're on the topic of presidents, I do know that in 2020, in December 2020, MLB decided to include all the records of all the Negro League players. Right. You know, are now actual stats in MLB record books, and that changed a lot of the historical hierarchy, I guess, of best players around, and including that Josh Gibson now is considered the greatest or one of the greatest
of all time.
All time. So how does that, as a former Negro League player, as a black man, how does that make you feel now that all the records and history of those who played before you, those who played with you, are now included in the official history book?
Well, to me, it was an upbeat for black players because a lot of the guys probably never would have played professional baseball if it hadn't been, well, they played, but they, you know, the American League and the National League really wasn't that hot on them, you know, putting all those records together because it cost money. You know, some of those players ended up with pensions that never would have got a dime. As a matter of fact, Satchel Paige was one of the lucky guys. Now, my oldest brother played alongside Satchel Paige, but I was too young to play with him. And the White Sox signed him. He came up a year short from getting a pension. And that's because he didn't have enough
service
years in. And so they signed him in order to, and he was just about finished at that time, but it enabled him to get a pension. I don't know how long he got it, but hopefully he got it until he left here. And speaking of pension, the military enabled me to get a full pension until I die. And if I die early, later, my wife and my daughter get the proceeds as long as it'll last.
Well, going on to that topic, I know that you shared with me a letter that you received from President Biden.
Right.
Actually, and I have that letter here with me. If you don't mind me, I'll read it.
Oh, not at all. Because as a matter of fact, I had some copies made, and I'm prepared to give anybody that might be interested.
Official
in it.
White House document, and it states, "Dear Mr. Westbrook, I've been holding on to your note that Ms. Gomes shared with me for some time now and wanted to be sure you heard back from me. Thank you for your kind words of support and for the signed baseball card. It is truly an honor coming from a trailblazing pitcher like you. Through great courage and sacrifice, you lifted up communities and paved the way for generations of black players in professional sports. I am grateful for your leadership as well as your resilience in the face of blatant racism and discrimination. You truly are an inspiration. I am proud to have you in my corner as we continue to build a better America. May God bless you. Sincerely, President Joe Biden." So, me personally, as a young man who grew up in Iowa and played baseball on a team of all white people and appreciated the sacrifice of Jackie Robinson and other Negro League players, I just wanted to say thank you as a trailblazer, as a foundational piece of just my personal life. I just wanted to thank you, and actually, I wanted to gift you a Negro League coin. In 2022 they released some uncirculated $50, and I had a privilege of coming across one, so I wanted to gift that to you for my appreciation.
Okay. And while you're looking, I have brought several of those letters as well as cards, baseball cards. My wife got them over there, so those of you who might be interested in a card. Oh yeah, that looks nice. You think I can spend it somewhere? Yeah, that's fantastic. That looks too good to be trying to spend it. Use it.
No, that's for you. That's for you. That's for you.
Okay, let me put this in my pocket right now.
So again, Mr. Westbrook, we definitely appreciate your time, appreciate all that you have done, and we just thank you for this moment to share with us.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure, because when you get into baseball, you're right in my wheelhouse. You get into a hospital, you're right in my wheelhouse. But I tell you, even playing military baseball, it wasn't easy, and the Negro League wasn't the easiest thing. So, but it gave a lots of blacks an opportunity, and they never would have been signed. And I probably never would have been signed, but Enos Country Slaughter saw me pitch a game, and he said, you got to try to get this guy. But I knew it was going to be tough going to the Mets in the Carolina League. Carolina League wasn't quite ready for me.
Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay.